We're a digital marketing agency based here in Kent Town and help corporate and government clients with their digital marketing activity. And we've been in business since 2007, so 8 years now, and this is certainly the first workplace injury claim I've been involved in. Yeah, it's one of those things that probably I didn't anticipate, because we're in a professional services business, and I always mentally associated workplace injury claims with something that was a bit more labour intensive, whether it was construction or something like that. So what happened was one of our developers developed over time some tendinitis and basically, whether it was RSI or something related to that, to programming. And as the pain became worse and worse, he became less and less able to fulfil his duties, and we started to really wonder what we were going to be able to do. It certainly, with a lot of intellectual property and what he had in his head that was helping us out from a professional point of view, it was very hard to replace him, and we were at a bit of a loss for a while. The duties were kind of scaled back over time, and there would have been a period of probably 2 or 3 months where he just couldn't fulfil the duties that we needed him to do. So as a result of that, we had to actually employ another developer who was able to sit next to him and do the work on instruction from the developer that had all the intellectual property in his head. Well, obviously, concerned for our employees' health. I mean, there was visible distress, and as well as wanting to make sure the business was okay, we wanted to make sure they were okay, and so we started to, look at opportunities for OH&S or some workplace therapy or any of those professional help we could get, because, like I suppose a sporting team, you want to keep your best players on the park, and that's what we needed to do. To be fair, it was probably an assumption that it was going to be a bit of a pain in the backside, so, but that couldn't have been further from the truth. Once we established that we were probably entitled to look at a workplace injury claim, and that it would actually help not just cover us financially, but help get our employee back to work and get him healthy again. It was one of those things that became a pretty easy decision to start the process, but once we did, I was just, I suppose, pleasantly surprised and managed to quickly ignore all of the assumptions that had built up in my head about how it was going to pan out. So it was really, really easy, and the level of service was extraordinary, I thought. I don't know, you've always just got those negative connotations about compo and, workers' compo claims and all those sorts of things, and over time, I suppose it's been built up to be a bit of a, what might be known as a piss take. I don't know if I can say that on the TV, but that might be the assumption, and then the associated guesswork around the number of forms I'd have to fill out and the number of times I'd have to spend hours on the phone with somebody and all those sorts of things before I even knew whether we were eligible for assistance. So, rightly or wrongly, they were the assumptions I went into the process with, and they had certainly changed after the fact. Yeah, so once we made contact and submitted the foundation of the claim, I guess, and we were contacted within, I think it was the same day actually, by the claims agent, and they had set up a meeting even later that week to have someone come out and assess the extent of the injury and the work environment in terms of whether there was other therapeutic things we need to look at from a workplace health point of view. But that was really painless, and they took time to explain to me what was going on and to say that they were representing both the interests of the employee and the employer. And I certainly felt that they hand-holded us through the process and let me know what to expect coming up and how long it might take to resolve and all those sorts of things. So no, it was breath of fresh air compared to my erroneous assumptions. Just that sense that it wasn't somebody coming in to advocate for an employee that might otherwise be off work for many months. There was very much a collaborative sense of, this is the problem, we need to get him healthy again so that we can not interrupt the business, and at the same time we need to make sure we look after his health. So let's do what we can, and they mapped out the steps, and it was, it was a pretty simple process in the end, and it was certainly one of collaboration, not one side versus the other. Look, over the course of, I I reckon about the 2 or 3 months, we had pretty regular therapeutic assistance from a treatment point of view. So there were physiotherapists and occupational therapists engaged to help treat the condition, and then a lot of advice given around ways that we could, improve or impact the posture, working conditions, breaking up work into different areas, assigning exercises and things like that. That meant that, eventually, once things improved, our replacement developer was able to, as a freelancer, was able to head back to the freelance community, and we were able to get our star developer back on the park and doing what he did best. How would I sum up my experience with ReturnToWorkSA? I suppose, contrary to my expectation, it wasn't all about workers' compo and all the negative connotations that go with that. So it was surprisingly a really collaborative experience where the claims agent I felt like they were on my side as well as on the employee's side. We worked together to get our employee healthy again and provide as little disruption to the business as possible. So look, if you have that experience, get online, get on the phone and give them a call, simply.